I knew the axe was coming when I walked into conference room C, and the HR lady looked like she'd been practicing her difficult conversations voice in the mirror all morning. But what hit harder than the scripted compassion or the limp coffee was the goddamn fruit tray. Strawberries, cubed cheese, and lies, all laid out like it was someone's birthday, not my execution. Elaine, thank you for joining. This is part of a broader strategic realignment process. Ever hear your own heartbeat in your teeth? I did. Right about when she used the phrase sunsetting your position. Like I'm a dying website, I asked for clarity. She offered buzzwords: shifting priorities, value alignment, talent pipeline. Not one word about the fact that I was the pipeline. I built it. Every forecast deck, every client model, every proprietary risk matrix with my name quietly removed in final drafts, all mine. But sure, sunset me. Real gut punch came next. We'd love for you to help transition your knowledge to Ava. She's our new junior analyst. Just joined from the internship program. Really bright, Ava, all of 23. Probably still thinks Excel macros are witchcraft. And I'm supposed to hand her the keys to the empire? Not the public-facing one. The real one, the algorithm I built after hours on my own machine with a thumb drive no one knew existed. And yet, I smiled, that I'd be happy to ensure a smooth transition. You don't survive 20 years in corporate America without learning how to smile while being filleted. By the way, if you're still listening and you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do it. Seriously. 97% of people just sit here eating popcorn and freeloading the drama. It actually does help the team. And trust me, things are about to catch fire. Back at my desk, I started my own version of sunsetting. Backing up what needed backing. Cleaning what needed scrubbing. Smiling at colleagues who avoided eye contact like I had contracted unemployment cooties. I said nothing. I watched everything. My real drive, the one with the full architecture of the Carter forecast engine, the variable weighting system no one else understood, and every single receipt that proved it was mine, stayed unplugged. Tucked in my leather satchel, encrypted and password locked. They could take the office chair. They weren't getting the crown jewels. First day of Ava's training was Monday. She arrived early, nervous smile, holding a turmeric latte like it was a talisman against corporate rot. Blonde braid, combat boots, chip on her shoulder. We shook hands. Hers were cold. Mine were steady. We did the usual show. Logins, Slack channels, folder hierarchies, client naming conventions. She nodded a lot, jotted things down in a little green notebook. Said interesting like she actually meant it, but there was something else. She never asked where the real model was. Never asked about the engine everyone knew existed but couldn't find. That was my first flag. The second came after lunch. An email from her, subject line blank. Just one sentence, Miss Carter. I know the real reason they're firing you. I stared at that line so long my coffee went cold. She didn't follow up. Didn't even look at me weird that afternoon. But every word of that sentence rattled in my spine like a locked cabinet someone had just picked open. I didn't delete the email. I printed it, folded it, slipped it behind a photo of my daughter in the drawer I'd already half emptied. Suddenly, this wasn't just a lame corporate betrayal anymore. This was something else. And Ava might not be the enemy. Ava didn't mention the email the next morning. Not when she asked for my notes on the June client churn. Not when she cracked a joke about the printer smelling like burnt soup. Not even when she complimented my boots. Just smiled like we were still playing make-believe, like she hadn't just thrown a grenade into my skull 18 hours earlier. I watched her while pretending to teach her. I talked about variance thresholds and modeling lag, and she nodded, sure. But it wasn't the clueless nod of a fresh grad hoping to fake it. It was focused, precise, like someone reviewing footage before a heist. She wasn't learning, she was confirming. And when I pulled up the old Q2 metrics dashboard, the one the execs had quietly phased out last year when they streamlined data access, she said, that's the one they replaced with the white-labeled pulse board, right? Nobody called it that. Nobody. Unless you'd sat in one of those sweaty internal briefings where overpriced consultants threw around names like pulse board and insight evolution while recycling my formulas with new logos. How do you know that? I asked, careful. I read fast, she said. Then, like she was ordering a sandwich, you should know Brad in BD has a second laptop he only uses when the India office calls. It's not company issued. His Slack alias is syssync. I didn't blink. Just filed that away, because that wasn't intern-level awareness. That was counterintelligence. Over the next 3 days, the little things piled up. Ava declined lunch invites from the marketing girls wisely. Said no to a welcome drink with the junior consultants, even wiser. Never left her notebook unattended. Knew which executive used the wrong font on slide decks, which meant his intern did most of his work. Knew which ones double-booked meetings to avoid answering real questions. And then Thursday afternoon, while reviewing some demo data for a fake sales pipeline report, she slid a post-it across the table. It read, "What's on the external drive?" She didn't look at me. Just stood, stretched, and went to refill her water like she hadn't just tossed me a matchbook labeled secrets. I didn't write back. I just took the post-it, crumpled it, pocketed it. But inside, something stirred. Not fear, not yet. Something older. Kind of awareness I hadn't felt since my early years when I still believed the system was meritocratic, back before I realized it was more like a polite pyramid scheme in business casual. So I tested her. I started feeding her scrubbed versions of the model. Not the real one, that engine had teeth, but the kind with enough nuance to reveal who could actually read between the lines. She read between the lines. You weighted Q3 volatility by exit risk, but not by contract length. Why? She asked one morning, looking at the screen like she'd found a smudge on a painting. I didn't say I didn't weight it, I said, sipping coffee. She smirked. Just didn't put it where they'd think to look. That's when I knew. Ava wasn't a puppet. She wasn't here to replace me. She was here for something. And from the way she checked the corners of rooms before speaking, like she'd been raised by lawyers or wolves, I figured her reasons were personal, or maybe just precise. But that email, I know the real reason they're firing you. It wasn't bravado. It was a breadcrumb, and now we were following the same trail. Ava dropped the match on a Tuesday. It was raining, the kind of East Coast drizzle that makes the whole building smell like wet carpet and printer toner. We were standing by the second floor espresso machine, the one with the passive-aggressive sign that read for client-facing staff only. When she said it, so casually I almost missed it. Legal was reviewing non-compete terms in the elevator this morning. Something about an IP spinout before Q3 licensing. She took a sip of her burnt Americano and stared out the window like she'd just commented on the weather. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I just stared at the way the rain streaked across the glass and imagined choking someone with the red lanyard hanging from my neck. An IP spinout. That was my code, my structure, my logic, my variables. Every late night I didn't bill, every bug I killed at 2 a.m. with cold pizza in one hand and regret in the other, all of it was being packaged up like a holiday gift basket. And legal was chatting about it like it was a new copy release. Here's the part that matters. I never signed the IP over, not the full build. The stripped-down version, the polished dashboards, sure, they lived on company drives. But the core, the real algorithm, that beast was mine. Written on my own hardware, encrypted with a salt key, stored on an offline USB that I locked in my desk drawer when I slept in the office during client rollouts. No version history, no cloud backup, no access logs, just one file name, Athena final no seriously this one final XLSX. And now they thought they could just spin it out? No. I turned to Ava. What exactly did they say? She looked at me, eyes sharp, voice low. Said someone from corporate governance is drafting language for retrospective assignment. Something about an oversight in prior employee IP coverage. They mentioned your name. Briefly, like I was a comma. Like I hadn't built the damn thing that made their forecasts more accurate than their competitors by 9.6%. Like I hadn't carried 3 CMOs through investor meetings with my models humming beneath their decks. I felt the anger settle into my bones like nicotine. Controlled. Familiar. So I did what any betrayed analyst with a god complex and a filing cabinet full of receipts would do. I got surgical. That afternoon, I started teaching Ava again. But this time, I changed the curriculum. I fed her everything except the root of the algorithm. I walked her through the interface logic, the client tuning tools, the risk modifiers, but not the heart, not the core architecture. That stayed buried under 6 levels of encryption in spite. She noticed. Of course she did. By Friday, she said, "You're skipping something in the weighting schema." Am I? She smiled but didn't push. Smart girl, instead. She asked about my opinions on internal ethics policies. Said she found them conceptually inconsistent, which is the corporate way of saying these people are snakes with MBAs. We talked shop, we talked trust, and between bites of vending machine pretzels and increasingly aggressive coffee, I realized something else. Ava wasn't just watching them. She was watching me, measuring how much I'd give, how much I'd guard, and whether or not I thought she was worth sharing the blueprint for the bomb I was quietly assembling in the basement of my mind. She hadn't earned it yet, but the girl was close. Later that day, I got a Slack message from an unknown user account. Just one line, they moved the client presentation to Monday. Pulseboard 2.0 will be in the deck. Pulseboard 2.0 was my math. They were about to pitch it like it was theirs. They were lighting the fuse. And I had just decided I wouldn't be the one running from the fire. It started with a typo. A line item buried in an expense report from the strategy budget, Forward Sync IP licensing initiative. No department code. No project sponsor. Just $38,000 charged to consulting alignment and approved by 3 people I'd never heard of. You don't get to my age in this game without knowing how to sniff rot. And that line stank like shrimp left in a rental car trunk. I flagged it. Ava dug. Within 2 hours, she found 4 more entries, all variants of the same name. Forward Sync, FWD Sync, even one labeled FS, Phase Roman 2. Each tagged with dollar amounts just small enough to avoid review thresholds. Slipped under the radar like budget barnacles. We started building a map. Every transaction, every modified deck, every updated template that suddenly looked eerily familiar. I knew those chart colors. I made those chart colors. That cornflower blue for Q2 deltas, that was mine. The axis labeling, the trailing 3/4 forecast overlay, mine. My DNA was all over this thing like a hacked-up body in a rented van. I'd given them a blueprint and they'd Xeroxed it, smudged out my name, and were trying to sell it in broad daylight. Not even cleverly. Ava didn't speak for a full 10 minutes after she stumbled on the internal slide deck folder. Just clicked, scrolled, clicked again. They changed the file name, she finally said. But not the formulas, my formulas. Nested ifs inside dynamic arrays nested inside hell. The kind of logic you only write when you're sleep-deprived, overcaffeinated, and fueled by righteous control issues. And there it was, untouched. Line for line, variable for variable. In a deck labeled Licensing Prospectus Q3 Confidential. Still no attribution. No mention of my name. Just a neat little footnote, proprietary in-house forecast system, optimized for scalability. Optimized, my ass. They'd taken the engine out of my Ferrari and jammed it into a golf cart. Then came the kicker. Friday afternoon. Ava accidentally walked past a junior strategy exec's desk. You know the type? Can't spell precedent but makes $180K because he once heard of regression analysis on a podcast. His laptop was open. He was away, no lock screen, Slack blinking. She snagged a screenshot with her phone, texted it to me under the table. It was a PDF. Subject, presale licensing overview forward sync IP pending body, ESD. Valuation, $12.4M. Pre-purchase agreement in draft. IP formalization in progress. Attribution, internal development. Risk, minimal. I had to read it twice. Then once more just to confirm I wasn't stroking out. They were selling my algorithm for $12 million as internal development. No mention of me, no mention of rights, no footnote, no courtesy call. Just risk, minimal, risk, minimal. I walked out of the office that night and dry heaved into a storm drain. You think you felt betrayal before. I watching your life's work, every sleepless night, every ignored birthday, every missed holiday, every damn spreadsheet cell you bled into, stripped of your name and gift wrapped to line the pockets of people who use words like value capture while mispronouncing your first name. But I didn't cry. I walked back upstairs, locked my office, closed the blinds. Then I opened the encrypted drive. It was time to stop mourning and start building the payload. Because if they were going to sell my system, I was going to make sure it exploded in their hands. They wanted a forecast? Fine, I gave them one. I took one of the old prototypes from the early build days, version 3.2 back when the math was still buggy and drunk on overfitting, and polished it just enough to pass as a beta. Then I slapped a fake dev tag on it, CFX Pulse Early Release Final. Capital letters, all caps final. That's the corporate equivalent of a security blanket. It projected a 17% revenue bump in Q3 for our West Coast logistics client. The real number, -6. I loaded it onto a sanitized USB, plugged into one of the shared dev terminals by the break room, and accidentally saved it to the shared drive where the data ops team poked around like blind raccoons in a compost bin. It took 2 days. 2. Next thing I hear, it's in the deck for the Sutter Creek pre-renewal call. The client, bless their obsessive little accounting department, cross-checked it with their own metrics and immediately called bullshit. I heard it from Ava, who was on the BCC of the follow-up email chain. Subject, urgent, forecast discrepancy clarification body. Please confirm methodology and variable weighting. Projection divergence exceeds 20% from internal metrics. Raises concern over model reliability. Exec reply, looping in BD plus ops for review. Let's regroup Monday. Translation, we have no idea what we just sold, but now it's on fire. I read that email while sitting in my car in the parking garage, chewing on the end of a Bic pen like it owed me rent. For the first time in weeks, I laughed. A deep, ugly, delighted laugh that echoed off the concrete like a damn victory gong. They had no clue. No clue it was fake. No clue it was me. No clue they just served a poison cocktail to a client who actually reads footnotes. That night, Ava slid me another list, names, titles, and Slack aliases, all the ones covering for the deal. The ones running interference. The ones quietly adjusting their data on file creation dates so it looked like the model had been developed after my departure announcement. Brad from Business Dev, guilty. That second laptop she mentioned? Turns out it was used to resave files with clean authorship logs. Madison and legal? She'd been retrofitting NDAs with backdated language. Even Marcus, my old colleague in analytics, the one who used to bring me peppermint tea during flu season, he'd been forwarding sanitized code snippets from my old dev folders. Silently, like a butcher in a silk tie. Ava even got her hands on a chat log. Marcus, we just need to make sure Elaine's version never surfaces. Stick with the Pulse one. Use Vanguard wording, she hated that. It'll muddy the trail, she hated that. They used my disgust as a diversion tactic. I should have been devastated. I should have cried. Instead, I felt thrilled. You know that scene in every bad action movie where the hero loads bullets into a magazine while jazz music plays and they're finally in control? That was me, sitting in my dim office, dragging files into a new folder titled Detonation. This wasn't just corporate treachery anymore, this was art. Ava and I had officially crossed the line. No more tests, no more guesswork. We were going to show them what happens when you try to sell a woman's brain behind her back. And the beauty of it? They still thought I was walking away quietly, training my bright replacement, sipping my sad coffee, mourning the end of my career. They had no idea the blade was already swinging. And this time, I wasn't the one under it. It was Ava's idea to print the intern contract. She did it on a whim, she said, bored during a compliance training webinar about phishing scams. She wanted to see what they'd buried in the fine print, and oh, did she find gold. Page 7, Clause 14b, subsection Roman 3. The undersigned shall be protected from retaliation under whistleblower statutes as defined in the SEC and Sarbanes-Oxley protocols, should concerns arise from exposure to unethical or illegal activity. She walked into my office like she'd just robbed Fort Knox, the paper shaking slightly in her hand. They forgot to strip the clause, she said, voice half-awe, half-fire. They used the external intern template. I'm covered. I read the line twice. Then again, it hit like a champagne cork to the face. HR had copied the wrong contract. Ava, the intern-turned-analyst, was wrapped in legal Kevlar, and she knew it, we both did. I looked up from the paper and saw it, not just the excitement, but the shift. Her posture was different now, shoulders back, chin lifted, like someone who just realized she wasn't walking into the lion's den. She was the lion, so we started building the package, line by line. By file? No fluff, no rambling, just sharp edges and proof. First, the forecast codebase, the original, XLSX logic from my encrypted drive with version history, hash records, and export timestamps. A trail even the dumbest IT audit team couldn't deny. Then, the metadata snapshots. Ava had been screen recording over the last 2 weeks the internal deck folders, the renamed files, the Slack messages from Brad with his "this is a done deal" smugness. We even got a Teams chat where someone joked, "Hope Carter doesn't pop back up when we're cashing those licensing checks, lol." Lol indeed. But the masterpiece? The final nail? A memo. Internal. Circulated only to VPs and legal. Ava found it in a shared folder marked Transition Frameworks, probably meant to be deleted, but some intern forgot to scrub the audit files. The subject line? Q3 Risk Mitigation, IP Separation Strategy, and right there in black and white was a sentence that lit my lungs on fire. The termination of E. Carter shall proceed as scheduled. Timeline aligns with Phase 2 IP extraction. Recommend discretion regarding ownership queries. Phase 2 IP extraction, like I'm a tooth, like I'm a tumor they needed to cut out so they could sell the marrow. I looked at Ava and grinned. Get me a flash drive. She handed one over. It was shaped like a tiny banana, some swag gift from an old tech conference. Seriously? I said. She shrugged. It's funny. If this ends up in court, they'll have to say the banana drive on record. I started transferring files. I hadn't smiled in 3 weeks, not really. But in that moment, watching the progress bar inch forward like a loaded weapon being cocked, I felt it. Not relief, not even satisfaction. Precision. The kind of cold, surgical rage that doesn't scream or sob, it executes. Ava started labeling folders, each one cleaner than the last. /proof/witness timestamp/memo internal EC/code original Carter. She moved like someone born to do this. No hesitation. No second guessing. And I realized something else. She wasn't just my ally, she was my successor. I'd been replaced, yes, but not by a pawn, by a scalpel. And I was going to show her exactly how to cut. The invite came wrapped in corporate theater. One of those vague calendar bombs with no agenda, no attachments, just the scent of legal cologne all over it. Subject: Q3 Licensing, Risk Factor Review Session Organizer. External Counsel, New York Office Attendees. All senior staff plus select analytics plus legal translation. Panic wrapped in a PowerPoint. I went upstairs, smelled smoke, and finally realized it wasn't toast, it was the floorboards. The meeting was scheduled for Thursday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. Ava's last official training day was Wednesday. Coincidence? Not a chance. The snakes were shedding skin, quietly, cleanly. They wanted me out of the room before the questions started. And as if to cap off the insult, they sent me a farewell lunch invite for Wednesday at noon. RSVP optional, cupcakes promised. Cupcakes? The same execs who tried to resell my brain like a used Tesla now wanted to send me off with vanilla frosting and half a fruit tray. I deleted the invite. No response. No RSVP, just silence. Instead, Ava and I met one last time in the server room, the old one tucked behind the west stairwell where the building's HVAC still hiccuped like a drunk dragon. No cameras, no keycard log. She'd set up the trigger exactly how we planned. Dummy folder on the shared drive labeled Licensing Review Q3. Inside it, one innocuous MP4 file titled Market Trends Extended Version. The moment anyone opened it, especially from the Boardroom access point, the autoplay kicked in. Screen-recorded evidence, metadata logs, the full Carter algorithm demo, timestamped, annotated, narrated by me like a damn Netflix expose. Then the kicker, the internal memo about my firing. Final slide. You can't sell what you never owned. Simple, ironic, unforgiving. We tested it 3 times. It worked every time. Ava checked the script line by line, verifying file dependencies, server permissions, playback compatibility. She even added a subtle audio watermark so the firm couldn't claim deepfake later. Fail-safes in place, she said, snapping the laptop shut. If they try to yank the LAN mid-play, it uploads a mirror copy to your burner drive and auto-emails it to the SEC's public intake box. I nodded. No words left, really. Just breathe. She looked at me for a long time, then asked, "You sure you want me to be the one to stay?" I smiled, soft but steady. "You're the one they trained." That night I cleaned out my office. No big gestures, no tears, just method. I left the mouse bed with the coffee stain shaped like Ohio. Took the red swing line I'd bought myself. Wiped the desk with a Clorox sheet. Deleted my Slack history except for one line, always double-check the math. At 6:13 p.m., I walked out of the building for the last time. Red wool coat, black satchel, banana-shaped USB in my pocket. The receptionist smiled. I didn't smile back. I didn't say goodbye to anyone. Didn't leave a note. Didn't turn back. Just stepped into the dusk like a ghost leaving a haunted house. The real show wasn't mine to run anymore. Ava had the room. Ava had the click. And the next time that boardroom screen lit up, they'd wish they'd let me take the cupcakes. They expected bullet points. They got a confession. 9:01 a.m. The projector flickered to life in the 14th floor boardroom, the one with the comically large conference table, the orchid centerpiece that hadn't bloomed in 3/4, and the thick glass that muffled shouting just enough to keep the interns guessing. Someone clicked the file labeled Market Trends Extended Version. The screen didn't flash to a graph, it played a recording. No music, no company logo, just a still frame of a cursor hovering over a folder titled Athena Build Root. Then a voice, my voice, calm, methodical, surgical. "Let's walk through what you've been selling." Slide by slide, the screen pulled them into the architecture, not the polished dashboard, but the real core. The math, the engine, the DNA, my variable trees, my version control logs, my IP timestamps, layered like sediment. Proof stacked on proof, each click eroding whatever plausible deniability they'd wrapped themselves in. Then the screen shifted, Slack screenshots. Decks in progress with metadata showing edits months before my firing. Internal messages flagged with tags like sanitize authorship, remove EC references, update version trail. At the 5-minute mark, the internal memo appeared. The termination of E. Carter shall proceed as scheduled. Timeline aligns with Phase 2 IP extraction. Recommend discretion regarding ownership queries. The room, once buzzing with the rustle of printed agendas and low murmurs, went dead silent. And then the final screen, white background, black text. You can't sell what you never owned. No fade out, no credits. Just the click of the video ending and the sound of someone's pen rolling off the table. First to stand was legal. "We need to pause this meeting," someone barked. Too late. The external counsel, who clearly hadn't been briefed on the internal memo, leaned forward, face pale. "Where did that file come from?" he asked. No one answered. Then came the phone buzzes. 3, then 6, then a wave. The buyer's rep, seated toward the end of the table with her arms crossed and a folder marked final term sheet, stood up, didn't say a word, and walked out. Left the folder behind. Someone from strategy tried to follow her. The door closed before he reached the hall. Someone else muttered, "We're screwed." Someone else shouted, "Who opened the goddamn file?" Someone else, "Was this Carter? Was this Carter?" But Ava sat there, silent, taking notes like a model intern at a masterclass in collapse. By 9:26 a.m., the meeting was called off. By 9:41 a.m., IT locked down shared drives. Too late. By 10 o'clock a.m., the legal team began internal interviews. By 10:17 a.m., Ava's login credentials still worked. At 10:28 a.m., she marked the recording as viewed. I didn't see any of this. I was in my garden, wearing a sweatshirt that hadn't left the house in 4 years and sipping a $13 bottle of red that tasted like chalky freedom. Phone turned off. Laptop closed. Birds chirping with the kind of disinterest I've always admired. Then the breeze picked up and with it came the hum of peace. That strange, vibrating quiet that only follows detonation. At 10:31 a.m., Ava's read receipt lit up green on our burner chain. No message, just the light, just the signal. I smiled into my wine and muttered to no one in particular, "Good girl." The email came through at 6:42 a.m. Ava's name blinking against the quiet of a sky still smudged with night. From avajam93@gmail.com to Elaine C. Personal at ProtonMailCom subject. "You were right. They offered me VP of Risk this morning. Said they'd love to retain my institutional knowledge and fast-track me to partner track. I declined. I sent the full package to the SEC. Attached, you'll like this part." The attachment was a screenshot of an all-hands email titled for immediate release, the kind they blast company-wide when a scandal hits the wires faster than they can spin it. Subject, Leadership Update Body. Effective immediately, CEO Daniel E. Bramer will step down from his position. The board has accepted his resignation and thanks him for his years of service. No spin. No exit interview. No photo op, just fallout. I read it twice then again. The man who once smirked at me in an elevator and said, "You're a spreadsheet, Elaine," beautiful but replaceable, was now ghosting his own boardroom. I leaned back in my chair. Let the sun spill across my kitchen floor like the world had finally decided to warm something properly. Then I hit reply. To avajam93@gmail.com subject. You were right. Body. Stay dangerous. No sign-off, no emojis. Just those 2 words sitting there like a knife on velvet. I watched the cursor blink, then closed the laptop. Somewhere downtown, I imagined her at her desk, clearing files, nuking bookmarks, wiping her Slack presence like a surgeon stripping gloves after an operation. Deleting her company login, one key at a time. Delete, and that was it, no speech. No revenge fantasy, just precision, completion. I wasn't devoured by the machine. I built the next one, and this time, it bites back. There's something deeply satisfying about watching intellect weaponized against arrogance. This story reminds me that in corporate life, silence doesn't mean surrender, it often means someone is preparing. If you've ever been underestimated, this one's for you. Strategy isn't loud, it's lethal. Thanks for watching, you cubicle warriors. Hit that subscribe button. Unless you're my old boss, then you're on your own. Revenge of the coffee pot strikes again.